Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're trying to crack the code on a really interesting role in tech,
Mm.
the solution architect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the SA. For a lot of engineers, senior devs, it feels like this big goal. Lucrative, definitely. But how you actually get there
Mm.
often feels like a complete mystery.
Yeah, it really does.
So we looked at a bunch of material shared by someone with like 8 years doing exactly this.
Yeah.
And they really cut through the noise. Their core idea.
Mm.
An SA isn't primarily a coder or designer. They're a professional problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
And that definition feels important. It suggests it's not just about knowing tech, but about a whole approach to tackling problems, real-world stuff.
And that's precisely why we wanted to do this deep dive. Our mission here is to give you a clear, deliberate 3-step plan for making that move. Because people usually end up in this role one of two ways, right? Either kind of about accident, maybe they were just the one person willing to own some big, messy problem.
Right, fell into it.
Or they transition by planning, really mapping out the journey. And we're focusing today on that deliberate, planned approach.
Okay, so where's the first hurdle? I think for many, it's just understanding what the role is.
Mm-hmm.
A developer might look at it and think, okay, promotion, senior dev, then lead, next up architect. But what you found is just that's just wrong.
That's the single biggest trip up, honestly. We have to hammer this home right at the start. Becoming a solution architect isn't just a promotion from lead developer or senior engineer. It is fundamentally a role change. You're not climbing the same ladder, you're stepping onto a different parallel track.
Why is that so hard to see, though?
Hmm.
For, a really good engineer, they see the title, the pay bump. It looks like a promotion.
It's the exposure, or rather, the lack of it. Think about your day-to-day as an engineer. You're deep in the code, maybe testing, maybe leading a small team. When does the SA usually pop up?
Maybe they hand off a design doc, then disappear into meetings.
Exactly. They hand off the high-level design, and then they're off dealing with business folks, security teams, infrastructure, places the average dev doesn't see. So developers just have very limited day-to-day interaction with the full scope of what SaaS actually do. And if you don't really know the skills required, especially those critical non-technical ones, how can you possibly train for them? That lack of visibility is the real barrier. It creates this blind spot.
Ah, okay. That explains why the usual internal career path seems to stall out here.
Yeah.
If the internal people don't have that specific exposure, why would a company promote them into it?
Precisely. Organizations often see the SA role as needing someone who can hit the ground running with that specialized experience. So quite often, they'll choose to hire an experienced SA from outside the company instead of taking a really strong internal developer and investing the time to train them up, which just reinforces this idea. It's not an obvious next step up.
Right. So, okay, if we accept it's a role change, not a promotion,
Yeah.
what skills do we need? The sources boil it down to 3 key things, right? The 3 pillars.
Yes. 3 essential components. First, you obviously need the technical foundation, high-value tech skills. Second, you need the courage to actually practice those skills, which often means putting yourself out there in uncomfortable ways. And third, and this is critical, you need the social and leadership skills to influence people. That's where many engineers really stumble.
Okay, let's map out that deliberate path then. If my world has been code bases and debugging, where do I even start looking? Step 1 seems to be about getting a guide.
Step 1 is what we're calling the mentor imperative. Because the role is so sort of opaque from the developer's viewpoint, you absolutely need someone who's already doing the job well. This person gives you the practical, context-specific understanding of the SA role within your company or your industry. A generic cert course just can't replicate that.
But hang on, I'm ambitious. I can learn tools. If I get AWS certified or Azure certified, why do I still need a mentor? Isn't the gap mostly technical?
See, that's the developer mindset kicking in again. The gap is almost never just technical. The mentor helps with the nuance. They're the one who can say, okay, you know how to build a container, sure, but do you know how to convince the finance department that Kubernetes is worth the extra overhead for their cost tracking? That's context. That's the real job sometimes.
I see. It's the why and the who, not just the what.
Exactly. And the sources are pretty direct about the mentor situation, too. Ideally, find an SA within your current company. They'll know the politics, the culture, but here's the tough part, the critical advice. If your company doesn't have a decent-sized active SA team, well, you might need to look outside or even consider changing companies to find that opportunity.
Wow. Okay. That's a big step, but it makes sense. If you can't see the role being done well, day in and day out, how can you learn it?
Precisely. A good mentor is really the only way to do a proper gap analysis. They help you figure out what you know, what you don't know but need to know, and then build a realistic plan to get there. Trying to bridge that gap blind. Almost impossible.
All right, so we found our mentor, we've got our map. Step 2 is about broadening the technical view, right? But not just learning the latest JavaScript framework.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Step 2 is about structuring your technical learning at a higher level. And the main tools recommended here are the well-architected frameworks, the WFs. If you want to think like an architect, you need to start reading the playbooks architects use.
WFs. Okay, what exactly are those? Are they just like super long documents from AWS or Azure?
Essentially, yes, but they're incredibly well-structured guides. You've got them from AWS, Azure, Salesforce, Google Cloud, all the major players. These aren't coding manuals. They're principle-based. They cover the critical pillars of good architecture: cost, security, reliability, performance, operations, that kind of thing.
Coolers. Yeah.
They force you to think systemically above the level of individual lines of code. A developer might optimize a database query. An architect uses the WF to think about the whole database strategy, reliability across regions, security compliance, cost over time. It's a different altitude.
So the goal is moving from the specific how my app works to the general principles of how any good system should be built.
Exactly that. They help you understand the technical landscape. And that landscape is largely fact-driven.
Fact-driven?
Meaning, if the WAF security pillar says you must use encryption at rest, that's a technical requirement. It's pretty objective. You follow the framework's guidance. The technical decision is usually clear, verifiable. That's your foundation.
Okay, that makes sense. Build the foundation on facts.
Yeah.
But I know people with multiple SA certs from AWS or Azure, and they still aren't SAs. So knowing the WAFs is necessary, but clearly not enough on its own. Which brings us to step 3, the big one, the curveball. And maybe the main reason people trying to make this switch fail.
Absolutely. Step 3 is mastering technical leadership and the social skills that come with it. This is the real differentiator. See, when you tell a deeply technical person they need to learn leadership, the first instinct is often to look for a technical answer. Oh, should I learn Go? Master Kubernetes internals. Specialize in AI.
Right. Find another thing to learn. But the reality is messier, less technical.
Much messier. And yes, less purely technical. Technical leadership, in this context, is not about the next language or platform. It's fundamentally about people. It's about how you communicate, how you influence, how you facilitate decisions between groups, how you present complex stuff to people who aren't technical.
Yeah.
The challenge now is you have to take that fact-driven technical guidance from the WFs and smash it right into the social landscape. And that landscape is inherently opinion-driven.
Opinion-driven. Let's unpack that. What does that mean when you're deciding on an architecture?
It means everyone involved has their own priorities, their own viewpoint, often based on their specific role. And these are often valid but conflicting. The security manager, their opinion is driven by minimizing risk. The business owner, their opinion is about speed to market, maybe revenue. The project manager, they're thinking budget and deadlines.
Right, so the SA is stuck in the middle of this, this menagerie of stakeholders. Business folks, PMs, BAs, security, data teams. Everyone's got to say.
And they all have strong opinions on what the solution should prioritize. The SA's core job, really, is to document all these opinions, pull together the actual requirements, which might contradict each other, and then make the tough trade-offs. Yeah. Like the WF might clearly point towards a super reliable, multi-region setup technical fact, but the business owner says, look, we don't have the budget for that complexity right now. Just get it working in one region, save us 40%. The SA has to weigh that business opinion against the technical fact and propose something workable, something balanced. That takes influence. That takes negotiation, not just code.
Okay, I see the conflict. But why is this so hard for technical people? We're generally smart, we learn complex systems fast. Why can't we just, watch a few TED Talks on influence and get good at it?
Because your entire training, probably from university onwards, has been about finding the single objectively correct answer. You solve the puzzle, you fix the bug, you've been trained to learn technical skills in a safe space, a sandbox. You change the code, run the tests, see the result. Instant feedback, controlled environment.
Right, you can simulate code execution. Right. But you can't really simulate, negotiating with a stressed out project manager Or reading the room when an executive hears bad news.
Exactly. The social dynamic is fluid. It's unpredictable. It depends entirely on the specific humans involved at that moment. You can't learn these people skills in a technical sandbox because the feedback loop isn't there. You need real feedback from real people. You have to practice navigating actual disagreements, adapting to group moods, talking to people outside your tech bubble.
So if simulation doesn't work, what does the practice actually look like? How do you build these skills?
It takes serious commitment. You have to actively hunt for opportunities that push you outside your technical comfort zone. The sources suggest things like, well, recording a podcast like this, or interviewing people, presenting at internal meetups, maybe stepping up for an external conference talk. Even formal training like Toastmasters can help build structure and confidence.
Toastmasters. Okay. Public speaking practice.
Yeah, these things teach you how to structure a message, how to manage your time, how to hold attention, all vital when you need to present a complex architecture and defend your trade-offs.
And there was that great anecdote on the source material, wasn't there, about the commitment required. The person sharing this advice
Yeah.
when they were starting out, trying to build these skills for a basic podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, they mentioned they didn't know how to edit audio back then, so instead of learning editing software, they decided to just get the raw take perfect. They recorded their first single episode over 100 times, just doing it again and again until they got one clean, coherent, fluent take from start to finish.
Wow, 100 takes. That's the kind of persistence technical folks usually apply to debugging some gnarly infrastructure issue,
Yeah.
but applied entirely to the people skill of presenting clearly. That really drives it home. Influence isn't just intellectual understanding. It takes practice, repetition, real engagement.
It absolutely does. You have to talk with people outside your immediate team, understand their language, their priorities, and you have to be willing to, frankly, stumble a bit publicly, learn from it, and refine those interaction skills.
This has been incredibly clarifying, taking what often feels like a confusing jump and breaking it down.
Yeah.
So just to quickly recap the path for everyone listening, we've got 3 core steps.
Yep. First, find a mentor. You need that insider view to do a realistic gap analysis. They provide the context you just can't see from the developer seat.
Right. Second, use the well-architected frameworks, AWS, Azure, etc. Get that structured, high-level technical knowledge. Understand the fact-driven landscape.
And third, crucially, dedicate serious time to mastering technical leadership and social skills. That's the people part. Learning influence, communication, making those trade-offs in the messy, opinion-driven social landscape, that's the real game changer.
Looking at the whole journey, it definitely seems possible. If you commit to both sides, the tech craft and the human craft. But that human side, it needs action now, doesn't it?
It does. And that kind of leads to our final thought for you, the listener. Since these social skills need real engagement, not just reading about them, where's your first chance, maybe even today, to practice influencing or communicating outside your usual tech circle? You don't need the essay title to start giving a small presentation or offering to facilitate a meeting between teams, or even just recording yourself explaining a concept simply. Maybe the biggest thing holding you back isn't knowledge, but just that first act of courage to engage.
A fantastic challenge to end on. Thanks for walking us through this.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.